passage from the scriptures, and I want to read one of the miracles from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 8. You can read an even bigger version, a fuller explanation of this in Luke's Gospel, but I thought I'd just use Matthew. He's actually quite simple, less information. Matthew chapter 8 and verse 5. This is what we read. When Jesus had entered Capernaum, now Capernaum was a town that Jesus did many miracles in, had terrific privileges, and they mainly turned away from what the Lord said. And he said it would be more tolerable for some of the dreadful places mentioned in the Old Testament because they saw so much light and they turned away from it. There's a responsibility when we know about the Lord Jesus that we listen to what he has to say. There's a consequence if we don't. But anyway, in this place, there's a centurion who come to Jesus when he was in this place. And he asked the Lord for help. I like that. Where else would he go for help? Where else would he go for help? What did he ask? My servant lies at home, paralyzed and in terrible suffering. And Jesus said to him, I will go and heal him. Couldn't have simpler language, could you? The centurion replied, Lord, I do not deserve to have you come under my roof, but just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes, and that one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he was astonished and said to those following him, I tell you the truth, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. I say to you that many will come from the east and the west and will take their places at the feast with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the subjects of the kingdom will be thrown outside into the darkness, where there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then Jesus said to the centurion, go. It will be done just as you believed it would. No surprise, the consequence. And his servant was healed that very hour. I think it's a lovely story. The centurion. Bob's been reading to us from Ephesians about strangers and foreigners. Israel was occupied by the Romans. The Israelites wanted the Romans out. The fact that Jesus would even help a centurion is unbelievable. No, it isn't. I know too much about Jesus to say that. But this man is a man under authority because he's only a centurion. He got dozens of soldiers under him, but he was answerable to captains. Authority is all relative, isn't it? I remember being in charge of a department on more than one occasion in my life, but I was always subject to somebody senior or the MD anyway. I was always subject to somebody, and he was responsible to somebody else. A man under authority, but he recognized somebody greater. What was the concern of the centurion? I think this is lovely too. We can judge people, can't we, by their race. You could judge all the Russian people as dreadful. They're not all dreadful. And among these Roman occupiers, we knew that, and we know from the Bible, that some of them were very unkind. Just look at the way Jesus was treated. The soldiers didn't have to mock him. It was enough that the Jews were against him. And plus a crown of thorns and so on. They weren't all like that. Generally, almost without exception, when you read the New Testament, centurions were people of some standing. They'd earned the right to be people with authority. No wonder it was at that point that Rome was gaining its absolute supremacy, because they had people who could take responsibility and use it properly. And there are several instances of centurions in the New Testament. Don't castigate everybody because of somebody like President Putin. You think, well, what authority he's got. God could take his life just like that. We're all down here mortal. There is somebody with greater authority. But fancy being concerned about a servant. He could easily get another one. No wonder Jesus was touched. The Lord looks down on nobody as if he doesn't want to know them. He's far more kind than this centurion. Just think how kind this centurion was. Michelle, you shared with us a problem this morning. Think about this servant. His boss could have replaced him just like that. But his boss went out of his way to get help. The Lord Jesus is far greater than the centurion. He wants to help and bless you. And there are folk here who would be like the centurion and tell the Lord about the problem, or share the problem with the Lord as you've done this morning. He's the one who can heal, and there's nobody else. The confidence of this man. He came and first thing he said was Lord. That is absolutely essential. If he's not Lord of anything. If you don't crown him Lord of all, you don't crown him Lord at all. There's nobody who can do what Jesus does. There's no replacement for him. There's no one stands alongside him. And this centurion recognized something of Jesus. Fancy coming to Jesus, this foreigner, this Jew, a Roman centurion, and having the grace, the humility to ask for help. But he did. And the lovely thing was the confidence of the man. He said, look, I know what it is to have authority, and I know what it is to be under authority, but you've got more authority than me. So much so, he says to Jesus, I don't deserve you to come to my house, make that journey, but I believe you can do something nobody else could do, and he can. He can. Just say the word and my servant will be healed. Wow. What confidence. Do we have confidence in the Lord to do all that we need? Not all that we ask, all that we need. The commendation of the Lord. What a wonderful thing. To those who were following him, he turned and he pointed to this centurion or those who'd sent him, and he said, "Hey, I've not heard anything like this anywhere in Israel." Oh, isn't it lovely when the Lord thinks well of you? Wonder how that came across. Must have been a shock to those who were following that he could say this. They were astonished at Jesus saying this. Those who will be in the kingdom will not just be Jews. They'll be all believers. And many who are Jews will not be in the kingdom. And Jesus was giving the people of Capernaum a warning, hearing what he said. And the conclusion, Jesus said to the centurion, "Go, it will be done just as you asked." Now there was the pull. Was that all he needed? Did he not need something to take? Something to put on the servant's body or something like that? Some token? God doesn't need tokens. He needs faith. That's what he responds to. And this centurion had faith to believe. Jesus knew it. So Jesus said, "Go and it will be done." And it was. When you read Matthew, the centurion discovered when he inquired, because it was a journey to Capernaum from where he lived, he discovered the man was healed at exactly the hour that he spoke to Jesus. No surprise in that. Call to the Lord to save you, and he does it instantly. He doesn't need notice. But you need to call on the Lord. You need to do what was done here. Go to the Lord and ask for help. No one else can help. May God bless you for his name's sake. Thank you for listening.